Hi, my name is Moshe Kindler, and I'm the publisher of The Jewish Link,
Hi, this is Elizabeth Kratz. I'm editor of The Jewish Link.
and you're on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast.
Moshe, welcome to the pitch meeting. Do you want to introduce our guest today?
I absolutely do, and I'm looking forward to meeting our guest, who we actually do know, but we don't know enough in person. We're really excited to bring her here today. Her name is Rachel Krich. She lives in Fair Lawn. She is also the head of Project Ezrah, which has been in our paper, I think, probably 10,000 times over the last 10 years of our. There's actually a nice Project Ezra story involved in our paper. I'm going to share it later. I think I told Rachel when she started, but let's get right into it. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Rachel, so I think Project Ezra generally needs no introduction in the Bergen County community, but I would say that the Jewish Link is bigger than Bergen County now. So anyone who knows about the Jewish Link probably has heard of Project Ezra. So why don't you tell maybe a little bit about Project Ezra while also sharing some of your personal history? Because I know when I interviewed you back in 2020, when you began at Project Ezra, you had a fascinating origin story and interesting work in Brooklyn that I definitely want our readers to know about.
All right, great. So I'll just give you our quick, for those who are not as familiar with Project Ezra. Project Ezra is a nonprofit organization located in Bergen County, New Jersey, and we provide assistance primarily to Orthodox Jewish families within Bergen County. However, being Orthodox is not a requirement of our organization at all. We provide financial assistance, job development, access to resource information, some case management. We really work with families who are facing struggles, whether that is financial, that are in employment, whether they just can't find the right resource to help with a child, to help with an elderly parent. Something is within the community that they need help finding. We're the address that they come to. We're the address that the rabbis in the community come to when they have congregants who need help that step beyond what they are able to do. We work with families in a variety of programs, but each of our programs, while the programs have rules and parameters, every family that comes into our office is unique, and the needs they have are unique, and we put together programming and assistance for each one based on their needs. We help with finances, with budgeting, with learning how to maintain their jobs and their budgets and their work on their resumes. And we really try to help people stop needing our support versus staying with us or staying within the community, because nobody really wants to have this long term, but we want people to feel confident and comfortable walking into our office and reaching out to us to get the help that they need to take the next steps in their lives.
Okay, and I know you didn't fully answer the question. We didn't
Yes.
talk about Brooklyn yet, but we also forgot to ask you, where do you live, and what are your shuls, schools, and
I'll give
what
you
do your
the
kids
whole
do and things like that.
Of course.
As well.
All right. So we live in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. We've been my husband Daniel and I have lived in Fair Lawn for over 15 years now. We have, thank God, 5 children. Our oldest is at Nala. Our middle two, our son's in 8th grade at YBH, will be going to MTA next year. Mm-hmm. We have another 4th grader at YBH, and we have 2 little babies who are in Anshe Lubavitch daycare.
Okay.
So So we're very embedded in the Bergen County community at this point after 15 years. We did not grow up here, though. We're both from California.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Yep.
I'm from California also.
Oh.
I did not know that. We should talk about that later.
You too? Oh,
offline.
everybody here. Yes, we will.
But tell us about Brooklyn.
All right. So my early part of my career, the first 10 years of my professional career after I had got my master's degree, I worked for Shorefront Jewish Community Council. Shorefront Jewish Community Council is part of a network of organizations under the Met Council, Met Council of Jewish Poverty, which is an umbrella organization that also partners with UJA Federation. It's very complex, but works very well to provide assistance to low-income members of the Jewish community in New York City, which is a very big task. Originally, the organization started off as small JCCs or COJOs, Council on Jewish Organizations, within the micro communities in Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx, Staten Island. Over the years, the Met Council was just an overall organization that kind of took care of the back end stuff. Over the years, Met Council itself has grown tremendously, but all of those JCCs and COJOs are still their satellites within the community. So my organization that I ran was Shorefront JCC, which is in Brighton Beach. Mm-hmm. And as each community progresses, the needs of the community, the Jewish community changes. While I was there, we were working with mostly seniors who were Holocaust survivors who are from the former Soviet Union. And we assisted with a wide variety of case management services. We had one of the largest kosher food pantries in New York City. And we also partnered with the Met Council food pantry. And we provided thousands of hours of service every year. I think it was close to 10,000 hours of services to low-income seniors and anyone else, but it was predominantly seniors at the time. Since I've left, they've had to retool because they now have an influx of Ukrainian refugees who have come and are coming to their family in Brighton Beach, and I know that they are working very hard to meet those needs, and that's something that's very interesting to me about how the whole Met Council and JCC Kojo network works in New York City, is that each neighborhood shifts and has changes, but those are just the needs shift and change, and the organizations have to stay savvy and flexible to meet those needs. And that's something I've brought with me into Project Ezrah as well. The need is not static. There's good times, there's bad times, there's problems that you would never see coming. There's some problems that we always could see coming a mile away and they still hit us in the face. But our chesed organizations, our tzedakahs, have to be nimble and flexible and willing to change the way that we are providing assistance within the community to make sure that we're actually helping the need. If you're...
But with Project Ezrah does not have a umbrella above it like a kojo.
Correct.
By the way, a kojo is like a fun word.
Yes, it is.
It sounds like it's New York City. Is that
kojo? Yeah. So it's Council on Jewish Organizations.
We should steal that somehow.
I think it's not. Yeah. I mean, well, I'm not sure if it's trademarked, but I'll let you know.
It's a cool word, but it also sort of explains that how the Met Council is able to do its work.
Correct.
But Project Ezrah then is its own organization, and I know all of probably anyone who's lived in Bergen County for the last 15 years knows the origin story of Project Ezrah.
Yes.
But maybe you could transition a little bit and
Absolutely.
say some of that. And of course, both Moshe and I knew Rabbi Yossi as well, so we could talk about him.
I would love
bit.
that.
Yeah.
So I'll just a quick bit of the origin story of Project Ezrah. About a little over 20 years ago, there was a situation. It was the story is that it was on Yom Kippur. So a few people have different stories of this origin, but I'm going to give the one that I've heard the most.
Okay.
It was on Yom Kippur, and there was a gentleman who had his wife needed a surgery that wasn't covered by insurance. It was incredibly expensive. We're talking then 6 digits, something absolutely astronomical. Again, that number may have gone up through the history and retelling the story, but it was an astronomical number. And he went up to Rabbi Stern in shul tell him, because Rabbi Stern was known as a big baltztuck in the community, really someone who gave everything of himself to everyone around him. So this gentleman felt comfortable going to Rabbi Stern and say, I don't know what to do. And it was the beginning of Kol Nidre, from what I'm told. And the story goes that by the time they all left the shul that night, the money had been pledged and raised. And that was the start of Project Ezrah, was seeing that there were needs within the community that were greater than the sum of the community parts. That it wasn't a single rabbi couldn't necessarily take care of it, a single individual couldn't necessarily take care of it, but our community, which is smaller than Brooklyn,
True.
It is big in heart, has a lot of, thank God, very prosperous individuals who are huge baltztukas, and can really come together for each other.
But it's not just for things like catastrophic illness, it's also
correct.
Loss
So
of business.
that was the origin, right. And then from there the organization has progressed to provide many different levels of service, and started from there. Then it went on to really focusing people get jobs, because what better way to help someone but to help themselves.
There was a financial crisis. It was
2008.
the 2008 crisis that was. People knew that this organization needed to come into being, right. At that point.
So the organization started in 2009. Around 2008 is really when things took off, and that is. And since then, we've done what we did in Brighton Beach. And before I came, the organization really adapted to the needs that were coming up. And after, unfortunately, when Rabbi Stern passed away 14 or 15 years ago, and then Robert Honey came and took over and was able to really take what Rabbi Stewart had done and shape the organization into what I was able to come once he retired, came in and can move forward, and really helping people with different levels of need, different types of services. And I'm taking that, and then we're going to build and move forward and helping what the current needs and the current issues that are facing our community are.
Can I just interject?
Of course.
It's actually really an honor to have Project Ezrah here, because I don't know if you know, Elizabeth, you know this. Project Ezrah and the Jewish Link we are inextricably tangled up in our own origin story. The Jewish Link actually started at a Project Ezrah dinner in 2011. You may or may not realize that.
Yes,
You've told the story. I know the story, but I can't wait to hear it again.
I'm just going to share for anyone listening,
Yes.
because I think it's a nice story. I also am a fundraiser, and by the way, I agree with you. Our community is very, very generous, a very, very special community. I left the fundraising world. I'm now the publisher of the Jewish Link. One of my jokes is that I do more fundraising now than I did when I was actually a professional fundraiser. That's not true. But I was at the 2011 Project Ezrah dinner. There were almost 1,200 people there. Okay, it was Romer, Keter Torah, standing room. They had no room for people to sit. We're talking about both rooms full. You could not sit. And what I noticed was that there was not a single mention of it in advance in any of the local papers, and there was nothing post. And I said, how could it be that this huge event with well over 1,000 people, not a single thing was written about in the local papers? And I said, there's a real need here, and there's something missing in the community. And it was actually at that dinner that the idea germinated. It kind of gnawed at me all throughout 2012. And so Project Ezrah is one of the reasons why the Jewish Link started. So I'm saying,
and I don't know if you remember this, and I'm sure you don't. There's no reason you would know this, Rachel. But the first article I ever wrote for the Jewish Link as a freelancer was about a Project Ezrah gemach. It was about it was like a bat mitzvah
The bat mitzvah dress. We still have the bat mitzvah dress gemach.
That was the first article I ever wrote, and on assignment. So it was
incredible.
Cool. It's part of my origin story too.
And I think Project Ezrah is part of many people's origin stories, in a sense, in Bergen County. And the way I said it is not necessarily people that we've helped, but we have helped a tremendous number of people. But what we do is woven into the zeitgeist of our community. When I speak with high school students, I always first say, okay, who's heard of Project Ezrah? And I normally get a much higher raise of hands than I expect. And then I start asking the kids, okay, what do we do? What do you think Project Ezrah does? And the only way that these kids are getting this is through osmosis of some form, or they're like my kids and they're diligent link readers. But I don't, maybe they're not, or not all. And they always get it right. One kid says jobs, one kid says you're the ones who do the shalach manas, one kid says you help with financial assistance. And that shows me that we really are in the working of the community. We're hand in hand with with the community partners, with all the other chesed organizations, with the rabbis, to help coordinate and help people get where they need to be and the right kind of help that they need at that moment. And I really feel that it's, even though we don't have an organization like the Met Council above us, we are that for, in a sense, not completely, for Bergen County.
But there is a lot of different moving parts that it seems that you guys manage. And when I was going through last week, we had our special Chesed Link section, and there was a lot of Project Ezrah in there, and we thank you for your business there as well, and for sponsoring this new section for us. But one thing that I was really amazed by was how many different kinds of assistance you have available to people. It's not just Pesach help. It's not just a job board. It's not just, catastrophic financial assistance or medical. So can you talk, I guess, about the different kinds of, maybe the different kinds of clients that Project Ezrah is presented with, and how someone comes in.
And we love hearing anecdotes, love stories.
But of course, don't say names.
So I'm just going to say one point. I actually have quite a few anecdotes in my head, and I would love to give them. I just want to say clearly now that every anecdote I'm going to give you, I'm going to change something in the story. Nothing that changes the outcome or changes the idea or changes anything in the concept, but I don't want anyone listening to this putting 1 + 2 + 3 together and saying, it's Chaim Schlemkes next door.
Right.
Because it's not. Because there's something in that story that's not true.
And also, before you started recording, I think you said a very interesting statistic, which is that it is likely that I know people who have been recipients of assistance, and not just likely that I know out of my, social chevra of 200 or 300 people,
Right.
but quite a bit more than that.
Right.
I'll actually say more clearly.
Yes.
I know people you help.
Yes.
Okay, I actively know multiple people, and Elizabeth, you and I definitely know.
Yeah.
There are people I'm aware of. I don't know, not that I'm smarter or anything, but maybe
Right.
I'm a little bit more plugged in.
Right.
So I know of at least 7 to 8 families that
Right.
you're active, and so I'm just saying I'm aware.
And that makes sense based on numbers. So we actually did this very recently. We were reviewing, like, okay, where are we? Where are we holding with how many people in the community are we helping? Over the last 2 years, Project Ezrah has helped 1 in 8 families in Bergen County. Through the mostly Orthodox, but also the not necessarily affiliated families in this community. So everyone here has 8 or more people who they are close to them, and that someone is getting help from us on whatever level it is, and it really hits home that they might be at your Shabbos table, they might be sitting next to you in shul, you might have a play date with them. You don't know, and that's part of the beauty of the work that we do, is that if 1 in 8 is a number that shocks anyone, that's because we're doing our job right. Because we don't, people might know because they're comfortable telling their friends, they're involved in chesed in the community. But if it's a shock, it's because we are doing our job right. We do not let people's privacy get leaked. We are incredibly diligent on who we speak to and whose permission we have to speak to anyone about a family. The minute a person contacts the Project Ezrah office, and I'll go back in a second to kind of give you a walkthrough of what it's like to, when you reach out to us. From the moment you reach out, we don't say anything to anyone unless you as the client, sign a document to give a specific release to a specific person for a specific topic. So if we need to speak with a school about a family, we will only get permission to speak about a very narrow range of issues. If there's a lot of problems or a lot of challenges in a family's life, they aren't necessarily relevant to anyone. So therefore, we're not going to discuss it. We're going to discuss that that we need better financial assistance, and Project Ezrah will help with XYZ, please, and we work it out from there. We have to speak with a rabbi, anyone. It's the client knows who we're speaking to, and they know exactly what we're speaking to them about, and they can just say, I'm not going to give you permission to do that. I'm not comfortable with that, and we just go from there. So that's something that I think, because a lot of times I'll get calls like, I'm really worried about my privacy. People know me in the community. And I say, that's fine. I give them this information. I tell them how we work. No one will ever find out that we work with you.
Can I just ask?
Yes.
I know you're about to tell us, but for me, I always thought the issue wasn't privacy. Mm-hmm. The issue wasn't that people were afraid they were going to find out. I thought there was a genuine fear about Project Ezrah taking over your life. Okay. I actually think people will feel like they couldn't function anymore. That's it. They basically, if you go to Project Ezrah, you're done. That's it. Meaning, like, forget it. Project Ezrah is going to take over your books. You've literally lost your identity as an independent unit. Project Ezrah, they look at everything. Like, you can't even go to pizza without Project Ezrah blessing it.
Right.
I felt that was how do you respond to that?
So as organizations evolve, they keep adding more tools to their toolboxes. And when you're first starting out, when you first buy your house, you have one hammer and maybe a tape measure. And as you have to fix things and build things and new needs come up, you have to have new tools. So that we have a tool in the Project Ezrah toolbox that we call now the Partner Program, which is the traditional Project Ezrah program. It's for a family unit that has gotten to a situation that they need us to really take over their financial life. We need to be involved with all their bills, with all their budgeting, with every aspect of their life. It is not so common to get to that point. And if that is our only tool, we can only help a very small number of people. While that tool is very important and it's something that you don't see almost anywhere else around, it is now not the most used tool in our toolbox. It is probably less than 5% of our clients now that we have. Now, while those
Good to know.
clients take up a significant amount of time because we are so involved with them on a day-to-day basis, that's not where most people who get help from Project Ezrah get help anymore. We Roberts had started like what he called a tier 2. We kind of rebranded it. We're calling it the Boost program. It's for families who need a boost and just need some help, and with lots of different things in different areas. So if a family is either there's a job loss or there's a medical condition or whatever the issue is, that the amount of money coming in is not matching the amount of money going out, come to us, and we start with all outside resources. So first you reach out to Project Ezrah. We welcome you in with open arms. We start a phone call or in person, depending on what you're most comfortable with. People always like to step in slowly, so we follow everybody's lead. And we just do a basic review. What's going on? Where are you working? What's going, just give us a story. At that point, we take that information and we come up with a list of resources and benefits that additional to Project Ezrah that might be available to your family. Now, if in some places, in Brooklyn, almost everybody was eligible for government assistance because of the income levels, and also New York City has much more generous public assistance programs than New Jersey does. So most families come to us and they are not necessarily eligible for government assistance. If we find that someone is, immediately we say, great, you're eligible for this. We don't give you information if you're not going to be eligible. We don't want to send anyone on a wild goose chase. Eligible for something, we give you all the resources to apply for that. We offer assistance because sometimes you can easily go on a computer and apply for something, and sometimes it's really hard. So we give whatever help you need. We find other community resources that might be good for a family, whether they need Tomchei Shabbos, whether they need mental health care through JFS or other resources. And then we get that together, and then we put our package together. We put our money last, because this is something we really take our donors' money seriously, and we don't take a single dollar for granted. And a donor who can give us $1 is just as important as a donor who can give us $25,000. Every one of those dollars is important, and we want to spend it in the most mindful way that will help the families in the best way possible. So first we bring in outside resources. We support the family. If those resources are going to take time to access, we will help bridge those gaps. Once we get past that, we say, great, these are the resources, we're accessing them, or we're working towards accessing them. There's also a Project Ezrah application, which it's a lot of work. I'm not going to say that it's an easy, simple application. We do have other programs that are much lower bars and lower barrier of entries, which I'll speak about. This is if you're really in a situation that you're coming in for our real program. And then while that's happening, we work with you, we help you, we review everything. And I'm going to give an anecdote story. We had a family who, mainstream, things were going pretty well with the family. There were some health issues with some of the family members that were causing financial strain, but generally speaking, they were, making it work like everybody else, but just making it work. And so when there was a job loss in the family, there was just no way of combating that. This family also didn't have the greatest financial education prior to getting married, so there was no budgeting. There was just a lot of stuff that just wasn't there. And I always say to people, budgeting and finances are morally neutral. There's nothing wrong that you didn't do it. Let's just work on this now. This is now a new process. So the family comes in, we start working with them, and we realize this person's employable, incredibly employable. It's going to take them a month or two to get employed, but it's going to happen. So rather than let this family go into crazy debt over this time period, we're going to take the time to teach them and give them better education about budgeting and how to track your expenses and how to really understand what you're spending. And we're going to help plug some of the holes that unemployment and the other partners' salary was not going to fill. We worked with the schools to negotiate down tuition for that time period. We did all this stuff. 3 months later, the spouse that was unemployed was employed at an even better job than they were before. They worked with Jeff Mendelson, our Director of Employment Services, on his resume and on everything, just absolutely everything, negotiating the salary, everything, to get to a really great place. And now they know how to budget. We worked very closely with them on that. They understand their spending, and they're working towards paying down debt that they had made previously because of, just lack of education in certain areas. And so that's something we didn't have to take over their entire life. We did teach them how to budget. We do review their budgets with them to say, this might be a good choice. This might have been a difficult choice. You may want to you may want to be aware, Purim is coming, summer camp is going to be coming. These are things you may want to put some money away for while we're working together. But there's none of that, like, I can't believe you went to pizza. Like, we're going to be, that's not, and no. And now, listen, if a family comes to us and they're having financial struggles and we see that it's really out of the ordinary amount of dining out or household help, which we encourage household help, and we encourage spending time with your family and going out, and we encourage going on activities. But there's a range, and we say this might be an area that it might be tough, but this might be an area you can cut back so that you'll be able to have more freedom in other areas. And we give all of our suggestions.
And don't you also have, I think you still offer this once or twice a year, a Chatan and Kala training?
Yes.
Because that's such an amazing idea, like to just think about, like, wait, how did your example family get here? By not having enough early financial education at the very beginning of their marriage.
So twice a year, we offer a class called The Aisle. It's coming up again. I think it's May 3rd.
Okay.
And if it's May 5th, then we will put an edit in, but I'm pretty sure it's May 3rd. There is a sign up. So if you email theaisle@ezra.org, Ezra has an H at the end, we will send you the link to sign up. It's actually already almost full, even though we haven't even started advertising, even though we will be advertising very soon. You'll be getting the ad soon.
But it's time to maybe expand your space.
Yes, so now we do. Well, it's been on Zoom since COVID, and this is our first time doing it in person since COVID. One reason we do like to keep it small is it's a very interactive class.
Oh, okay.
And if it gets too big, people start they're not as comfortable asking questions. They might not get as much out of it. So we would prefer to do more of the classes versus larger classes.
Got it.
So right now it's twice a year, but if we get past the point that we're comfortable right now, we're going to just do another one in a couple months after that as well. And as I said before, as the need expands, we are going to expand our services as well.
So this is for individuals who are maybe engaged or just married?
Or newly married. So if you're engaged or within the first couple years of being married, this is the appropriate program for you. And we're now working on bringing on programs that will be for families who might have never gotten this help and they've been married for 10, 15 years and really need that level of education.
But the idea to me, like, I feel like it's like, it was really mind-blowing when I think it was Susan Alpert who first pitched that to me.
Yep.
It was a Chrono Levracha, I miss her.
Yes.
She was a friend. She said, listen, let's remember when you first saw your tuition bill and like what that was gonna cost. And remember, she's like, do you remember that sticker shock and like the gut punch in the stomach feeling that you had? She's like, what if you knew what to expect beforehand?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I think we know what's coming.
I mean, I knew it, you know it, but then you see it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's different.
It's different when it's not theoretical
and this
anymore.
is like, thank God, like this is someone who has done budgeting. I did budget over a period of years and sort of knew this was eventually going to happen. But I do, like, for whatever reason, Susan's example made sense to me, and I thought it was an incredible idea and so useful, and something that should be done like in every community.
Yeah, and we really help with people understand like what are reasonable expenses and what are not reasonable expenses. Like, what can you expect to have to pay for food for a family of 5 in Bergen County right now? And that, by the way, that number's changed drastically since I started at Project Ezrah.
Oh, yeah.
So I see everybody's grocery bills, and I can tell I see what those numbers are.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, how involved are you with the actual individual case? I didn't think that you were. I actually thought you weren't even so involved in every case.
So I'm pretty involved in every case. That's something that when I was speaking with the board when I was about coming on, that was important to the board of Project Ezrah, that they bring someone in who has programmatic experience, who really could works with clients. I don't always work one-on-one with all the clients. We have social workers, thank God, that do all that. But I do have a very heavy hand in with all of our clients, at least from the background. And so, yes, I spend a lot of my time marketing and fundraising and doing all the things to keep the organization going. But I spend at least half my time really dealing with nuts and bolts of client work.
You're actually meeting with almost everyone?
So I don't always meet with every single client all the time, because again, I wouldn't be able to do that. Then we wouldn't be able to open the doors because that was other things to do. But I review every client with our social workers. I review budgets. I help make recommendations. Some clients I hear about and talk about more frequently than others. But I know everyone who's involved in the organization on some level.
It's so impressive to me. Even though I met you before and, attended dinners and things like that and heard you speak, but it's impressive that you are able to both keep your hands on and also have kind of a eagle eye perspective in terms of oversight. And of course, the value of the fundraising and the...
Elizabeth, I'm actually going to say something.
Go ahead.
I think we made a mistake by inviting her.
Why? She's just too impressive. She's probably going to get hired out by someone
I think
else.
the mistake is that she has to change all the details. So her stories are too vague.
They're so good.
They're just, they're not good enough. No, I'm just joking.
No, you're a very impressive person. But one of the things that we wanted to, we see impressive people working in the community as part of our work at the Jewish Link, and we hope that those stories and the personalities of the people who we work with most often shows through in the newspaper.
We also hope they're true.
And
no, they're all true. When I say I changed something, I might have changed the gender of a person or the time it happened. Okay, I want to make sure they're all true. They're just, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, that sounds so much like me. Right. Like, God forbid, that's not you.
Right. Of course. But also, I think what since the title of our podcast is the pitch meeting, I want to know let's talk tachlis.
Yes.
What can the Jewish Link do for you, and how can we better share your message, and what is maybe one of the things about repeated questions you might get about Project Ezrah that might be something you have to correct a lot, or how can we basically help you?
So the number one thing that people say is exactly what Moshe said, which is Project Ezrah comes in, they take over your life, and you have no freedom anymore. Really? That is the number one misconception that we have within the community. And so one thing we've done that to really try to change that is we've created programs that I call the low barrier of entry, meaning there's an application of some form, and depending on how much assistance we're going to give is how many questions we ask. And it gets people help right away so that they can become comfortable. So right now, it's right before Pesach, we're winding it down because we just need time to get all the money out, but we have a Pesach grant. So what is a Pesach grant for? It's for families that need a little extra help. So if you are already getting Tamchei Shabbos, you are absolutely still eligible for this grant. If you're getting help from anywhere else, we just ask so that we know where to help you. Because Tamchei Shabbos is going to get you everything you need for Yantif when it comes to food. But sometimes someone needs new shoes, or you need a new set of bowls, mixing bowls, or something.
Do you work with
Tamchei? We work very closely with Tamchei Shabbos. We on all of our clients, and we try to speak together all the time with them. So that is a wonderful partnership, and they really do so much. And if the food is really, they do so much with Shabbos food and for Yantif food, so we don't need to use our resources there. The things that they don't do, we do help with our resources. So if someone reaches out to us and they're not getting, and we think they really should, we tell them, please go to Tamchei, and then we're going to give you cash for other items, or we're going to give you a gift card to a clothing store. We will order clothes for you. Send us links. We'll make sure your children have clothing. We ask people, basic questions. How much are you making? How much is your rent? What are your tuition obligations? Because these are important things to us to know when assessing a situation. What do you think?
What's your credit card debt?
Yeah, what debt, stuff like that. How much do you think you need for food, housewares, and clothing for Pesach? And of that amount, what are you actually able to contribute towards it? Let's say you need $1,000 for all three, throwing out a number that's easy. And you have $500 set aside for it, but that's all. So we understand, all right, you probably are in a position, you need $500. We can either give you that. We might give you a little bit more, because whatever we think Pesach is going to cost, it's going to cost more. And we really work, based on the size of the family and what their needs are. And many families who have reached out to us recently, we are sending them the information about what they're getting, but also saying, we really want to work with you through the year. Please meet with one of our social workers. There's a link. You can sign up for an appointment. It's like, we make it as easy as possible to get in touch with us. And I know, based on the appointments that are being made from those emails, I know we're going to have a lot more clients. And I'm sad that we have a lot more clients because that means there are people who are suffering, but I'm happy that this is not only helped people get what they need for Pesach, but also helped open the door to get them better and long-term help so that they're not stressed and in pain and dealing with this constantly, but we get them onto a better track. Also around Yontif and winter break, we do this one program that we will, if you can't afford to take day trips, go on activities, reach out to us. We have a very low barrier of entry form for that. You let us know what you want to do. We have generous donors and we get great discounts to a lot of different locations because it really helps people's mental health to be able to say, oh, we're also going to Great Adventure, like all of your friends are, even though they probably couldn't do it otherwise. And it really gives people that sense of, simcha that they need and the well-being to get through Yontif, because no one wants their children to come home and go, well, this one's doing this and this one's doing that. No, we let you know ahead of time, this is what you're doing, and you get to spend quality time with your family together.
I'm curious, by the
Yes.
way. What is the number for a family of 5?
For food?
For food. I just want to know, what is that number?
No problem. It's if someone tells me they're spending $2,000 a month on food for a family of 5, I would say, oh, that sounds about right.
24,000 a year.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Right now. If you told me this now that's if, let's say that's with kids who are elementary school age. If you now say, I have 3 teenage sons, that number is going to be, I'm not going to say 2. I'm going to say you're getting closer to 25. Well, just again, not to be stereotypical that, boys eat more. Old people who are older eat more than the 5-year-olds who sometimes don't eat as much, and you need to bring in more food for that. And so that's really it. So I would say, if you told me you have 5 kids, if you have 3 kids and they're all in elementary school and you spend $2,000 a month, I wouldn't blink an eyelash at this point. If you come to me with that number and you're saying 33, 34, I would be like, let me teach you how to read a circular. And that's part of the education we do. And let's see where you're shopping and how you're shopping. And maybe there are different ways. Maybe we could discuss, or maybe there's just a lot of stress in your house. And right now, the only way you can get through that stress of whatever it is by doing a lot of pre-made food. Then we take that into account. So no one is ever just a list of numbers at Project Ezrah. There are certain numbers that we're like, okay, that makes sense. But certain numbers, if it doesn't make sense, we always know there's a story. Now, that story might be, we just do convenience shopping, and if I knew about sales at this or that store, I would probably be able to save at least $1,000 a month. But that's very rarely the story, honestly.
I want to tell a great story.
Yeah.
They were spending way too much. Family was spending way too much for their food, but because they always wanted to have 10, 15 guests for Shabbos, but they couldn't afford to have the guests. So
Right.
But they couldn't cut back, so it was actually a challenge. So.
Right. We have these stories. Sometimes we say, Shabbos, that's part of the culture of the community also. And that's something that we deal with a lot. Now, people might think we deal with that more. This is another misconception. A lot of people think like, everyone just needs to keep up with the Joneses, so that's why they need extra help and money. And while, yes, there's, of course, a few people that come to us that reach out to us and we're like, listen, I know it seems like it's normal to go to Florida and Panama every year. It's not. We can't, we got to get out of that mindset. That's such a small group of people. The need that we see is really like that's the furthest thing from what they're thinking. But there is social pressure because it is expensive to host people, every Shabbos. It's expensive to have the fancy charcuterie boards and roasts and fishes, and it gets to be a lot. And we just have to be cognizant as a community that there are different levels of ability within the community, and that we really have to, no one wants to feel less than, but we shouldn't, hopefully this is a long-term cultural change, they shouldn't be less than if you have your Shabbos guests and it's just some more basic mains versus the very fancy cuts of meat and stuff. Now, I'm not telling anyone not to buy the great cuts of meat. I don't want any of our grocery store sponsors to suffer, but the reality is that there's a market for both.
Do you also have people, though, who come in, not just about, like, the Pesach grant, but people who come in and say, like, I I need a lawyer, or I need to consult someone regarding something, and I don't have the resources or even the wherewithal.
I don't even know where to turn.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's another great way of actually being able to have community members get more involved in Project Ezrah, because one challenge we have is that we want to keep everything so private, so we can't have a bunch of volunteers in the community walking through, looking at our files and our database. We have a great database of local community members who have offered pro bono services in various fields. And very often people will reach out to us and say, I have a need. Now, attorneys, I will be honest, that's a more complicated one. Very publicly, we don't pay for attorneys. It's the one thing we really, Project Ezrah, will not assist with. We will help find ways that one can afford their own attorney, because it just becomes a whole other kettle of fish. But there are some local attorneys who we work with who will provide pro bono hours. There are local accountants. There are dentists and endodontists. There are people who are just really good at QuickBooks who will help people. Even internally, we had an Excel issue. We needed some very complicated Excel file created. And we went through our pro bono list, and there's someone who said, I'll help people with Excel. Like, well, will you help us in terms like Project Ezrah? Sure enough, they did. It was amazing. It changed the way we do Purim. For this person, what they did for them was easy, for us was complicated. But that's a internal example of how we help. So people reach out to us a lot. Like, I just don't know where to turn for something. Often people will reach out and they can afford it, or they can afford it at a different rate. And then we also will help and find the best resource for them. And if it's not internal, we know everybody. We know how to get them to a different resource that will hopefully be able to help them as well. And we are not afraid to pick up the phone and call a donor who we're friends with, call a board member, call anyone in our professional network saying, someone just called, they need XYZ. Do you know a guy, that can just give advice, that could help us, could get us in the right direction. Right. So we do a lot of that.
It's such an important community service to offer, and it's really lovely. But last question, if it's okay if I can ask it. Last question, I would say we could probably spend another hour or two talking about all the great things that Project Ezrah does, but let's be crazy. Let's talk about something that you would love to offer that you've been thinking about for a while, something that maybe something that you're turning around in your head, not necessarily that keeps you up at night, but something that is a problem that doesn't yet have a solution that you would like to come to us in a few years and pitch us again. But what sorts of ideas do you have that are, wild and crazy ideas that we could maybe put out into the world and see what happens?
So listen, anyone who runs a tzedakah, like I said, their goal is to shut down. Why is, and I think I said this in our very first meeting, our goal is to shut down, not because there's no need for us anymore. Now, the reality is
never happens.
Never going to happen.
Right.
So you got to think to the future. I would love if in 5 years, Project Ezrah can grow not just in the services we provide to people who need assistance, but to the entire community. People who financially are stable or have a job, but could use other services. Can we provide I really would love to have a more expanded class selection and be able to have continuous programming and continue education for seniors, for more young married couples, for people in the middle of their life, for teenagers. We really want to work on engaging students in different areas, and to really get chesed is one of get that chesed muscle working for them.
Actually, that is an idea, the budgeting for teens concept.
Yes.
Do you guys do that?
We don't do it right now. What we do is we do have connections with other organizations who have really great curriculums. Mesila and Living Smarter Jewish.
Yeah.
So because they're doing it and have it, we've connected schools with them because, again, we don't want to duplicate resources. At the same time, eventually we would like to have, specific to Bergen County, specific to our community, services like this, also ways that kids can get involved. I'm working with some lay leaders on creating we're calling it, the working title is Project Celebrate, where we're going to create we hope to create a whole world of bar and bat mitzvah programs that people can kind of buy into for their full chesed project year, their whole bar mitzvah year. This is very, very rough.
It
was brought to me by lay leaders. A lot of the amazing work that we do is really brought to me by the lay leaders, who then we work together and they take it on and run the committees and run the show. So I really hope that in 5 years, that is a much more robust group of people, that people continue to come to me and we continue to come up with ideas that we can have a place that if you walk into Project Ezrah, walk into our office, right now it's very quiet and don't tell anyone and you're here and call from the parking lot. I'd love to expand our services to include so many that have nothing to do with financial assistance necessarily, which again, I'd love to take the stigma away from that, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon, so I'm not even going to try. But that you're walking in, who knows why you're coming in? Maybe we are hosting a CPR class for babysitters, or maybe we have, some program, an Excel workshop for seniors, or how to use your phone, like whatever the needs that we see coming up are. I'd love to be able to make the organization, and I think our board's also on board with this idea, is really encompass not just those who are, quote, clients, but the entire community, and be a place for the entire community. That would, at the same time, make donors comfortable working with us, and they know what we're doing, they see what we're doing, and we're hopefully that, because we will have to raise our donor base if we want to expand it this way. But at the same time, our clients will feel that they're just walking in with everybody else, and it won't matter why you're coming or why you're talking to us. So that would be something I'd be really excited to see.
That's a really nice dream. I love it. That's what I always like about these programs. The point is that you should not be afraid. You should not see Project Ezrah as this, as we said before, this organization to be afraid of, in a sense, to feel it as someone that it's approachable. That's what I like about the Aisle program, working with young couples. The goal is we don't want to be in a situation where we need a Project Ezrah. But the point is if you're ever in such a situation, it's not the end of the world. It's not only not the end of the world, but we've actually dealt with this organization. They've helped us, or we did a class. Or I'm just saying, I love that idea. I hope you achieve it.
Yeah. So a few things we've done to start that is Tamara Ackerman, our social worker on staff, who is incredible. She is a SHIP counselor. SHIP is it's certified to do Medicare enrollment in the state of New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So
you said SHIP counselor.
SHIP, SHIP.
Oh, actually, I thought you meant maritime, like SHIP.
Yeah. It is spelled the same way, but it is not. Okay, and every year during open enrollment, well, she can help any time of year, but during open enrollment, we're really busy and we help people enroll for the appropriate Medicare plan for them. You get Medicare whether you have all the money or none of the money. And we help people along the spectrum, and that's really the kind of thing we want to add to our group of programs. Our programs are just for everybody, that access.
That's
so
amazing.
Let's hope in 5 years we can get there.
Great stuff, Rachel. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for being with us. Rachel didn't say this, but you know that there are other organizations that are model on Project Ezrah.
Oh, of course.
In the 5 towns, there's an organization, Achenu, which I believe, even though they may deny it, which I believe had some of its roots in some of the work that Project Ezrah did. I'm just saying we feel really lucky to have you here with us.
Thank you.
And just I really hope that what you just said comes true.
I do too. Thank you. And I'm just honored to be with you guys, and thank you all for your constant support of the organization. One thing you didn't ask me, but I will add, is that, how, I think you'd mentioned before, like how the Jewish Link, how we perceive it, how it works in our community, and I'm going to give you a shameless plug now because I really do appreciate it. Having the Jewish Link is I can't explain, it's worth so much to us, because once we put stuff in the link, I get calls. People come to me on Shabbos. I get emails afterwards. It's the best way to let people in our community know what's going on in their community, and in a way that in an era that no one reads papers, it is what everyone does, and it is the number one piece of reading material in my community and in my shul on Shabbos and throughout the week. So I appreciate you giving us that ability to really get our message out. And because a lot of the help, if anyone who reads the work that we do and then they're getting help, you're part of that mitzvah also by adding us. So thank you for always being there, even when we call, when it might be a little too late to call.
Thank you. Let's avoid that.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for your time, Rachel, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. If you would like to participate or be in touch with us in any way, please email us at editor@jewishlink.news and follow us and find our podcast wherever you find podcasts.